So first are some announcements. So first of all, these are new members from the last meeting. So I don't know, is Austin on yet? I didn't see you, but Austin and Luke, Jerry and Jen, I saw them together. Valeria and Colleen, I haven't seen them. I saw Denise and Laura and Corey, I haven't seen yet. If everyone's on, I'll stop sharing so I can see everyone's pictures.
But when you say that, it sounds like the magic mirror. I see Tommy and Sammy. And
it is. There's so many people. There's like a lot of people here.
44. That's great.
Yeah. Well, there were almost 70 RSVPs, so we'll see if there might still be rolling in here. Okay. Well, maybe I'll wait just a minute. Okay. Go back to sharing the screen. There. Okay. So again, a shout out to all these folks that just joined the society. Thank you. I don't know if people want to introduce themselves or take a second and say hello and introduce themselves if they're on. Jen and Jerry, I know you guys, and I don't know if everyone else does. You're on mute.
Okay, am I unmuted? So yeah, we're happy to join. We love your speaker, program, and Zoom allows us to join from afar. So we're happy to be new members.
Where are you? How far?
We're in Ventura, South.
Great.
So
welcome.
Welcome. And then Laura, I think we spoke briefly. You're on here. Do you want to say hello? Introduce yourself.
Oh, hello. I'm Laura. Nice to meet all of you. I'm so excited. I'm really excited for the speaker today. And yeah, I've been wanting to join this group for 4 years now, so I'm really happy I'm here.
Welcome.
Glad to have you. Let's see.
I'm Cora. I don't think I'm really a new member yet, but a friend told me how to get this tonight so I could see what it was like. And I don't see her though.
Okay.
She was Natasha Conhigh.
Right. She contacted me and I sent out the information. We welcome people to try us out. So thanks for coming. Hope you join.
Hey Jeff, our friend Alina is from Hawaii, so she's not a member, but I think she's on. Alina, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, hi. Hello. Thank
Welcome.
you for inviting me. Thank you, Tanya and John, for having me here. And I love to hear everything because I'm a new orchid lover. I can't.
She's an obsessor already.
Oh.
You're already in that.
Hi.
Yes, she is.
Hello.
Hi, now we can see you. Welcome.
Jeff, I
Thank
also
you.
invited my neighbor, Tien. He's
Yeah.
also an obsessor.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you,
yes.
Tanya.
There he is.
There you are.
I was here a little bit earlier, and I am afraid because I'm not the member yet, and I'm going to. So,
Well,
thank you for inviting me.
of
Tanya.
course. Welcome. And Denise, you want to say hello?
Hi, my name's Denise. I'm in Napa, so I'm a member of the Napa Valley Orchid Society. And I started attending your Zoom meetings because I can't get down to San Francisco for your in-person meetings. I'm a judge in training. I was going to say I'm a student, but I'm now an associate. And I do volunteer work with the AOS, so I am the chair of the Affiliated Societies Committee.
Great. Well, welcome, and we appreciate your support. And are there any other new members that joined that haven't introduced themselves that I missed?
Or guests?
Or guests that want to introduce themselves? Okay.
Hi, hey Jeff, I'm Nancy Tristan.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, I'm so happy to join Zoom meeting, and I'll join next month as a member to support you guys because I think you guys have a great society. And I'm in Ventura County, California, South.
Oh, great.
Close to Jen and Jerry. So thanks for having us.
Of course, a pleasure. And for folks that don't remember, so Nancy and Jen come up for POE and they volunteer and spend lots of money buying plants. So.
Oh yes, I remember you, Nancy. Hi, this is Antoinette. I'm eating, so I don't have my picture, but
that's okay for you.
All right.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Carolyn.
Oh, hi, Carolyn.
I'm a member of the Moran Society. Hi, Lynn and Susan and Tom and everybody else. And I volunteer at POE every year. This year I couldn't make it because I had some major surgery. But I'm happy to join you tonight and hear your new speaker, and probably will end up joining because Zoom is a great way to participate.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. And I
Hi,
see
Carolyn.
Hi,
Carolyn.
Hi there.
And Hannah, I see you just logged in. Hannah's been a new member for a little while, but I don't know if you've met everyone. So you want to just say hello, introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Hana Hardy. I think I joined in February of this year. I started growing orchids, just, I'd get them as gifts, and then I had no idea what to do with them for many years, although I'm an avid gardener. And then one day I just kind of figured it out and started tinkering with the roots and realized that, I guess the mechanics of the way orchids grow is just completely different from soil gardening. So once I figured that out, then I was able to successfully get my orchids to bloom, and now I love them.
Good for you. Are you in the Bay Area?
I am. I live in San Francisco, although I'm currently sheltering in place in the South Bay. So it's nice to meet you all.
Yeah, you too. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Hannah.
I love
Thank
the
you.
phrase tinkering with the roots. I think I'll use that.
Yeah. Tom usually likes to mount them on like shoes and tennis rackets, and
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding. All right. Anyone else before I move back to sharing my screen? All right. All right. I'm going to go, how do I get this thing back up? Thanks for your patience. I'm getting there. Okay. I think we have it back. All right. So, so before I introduce the speaker, Mary Mancini, she's on from Shreveport, right, Mary?
Correct.
And she's going to talk around 8 o'clock, or as soon as we're done with show and tell. If that's earlier, I won't let it go much later than that. John, you guys met John Rushworth, our new webmaster, who's been doing a bang up job, like getting everything turned around for us. And he had a few updates. So I just wanted to give him a second to say what's new.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to see everybody again.
Can I see his face?
Let me see if I can stop sharing. Can you guys see John? Yep. So John, did you want to mention, there've been questions about the member login. Everyone that's a member should have gotten an email to allow you to log into the website to see member-only content, like the newsletters, the archive newsletters, and bylaws, membership handbook, there'll be some other items there for you to explore, and we're continuing to kind of work on that. So if you have feedback, let us know about what you want to see or not.
Yeah, it's going to become quite robust. We're just starting, and we're going to be adding new content quite frequently to the member-only site. But if you have not received an email prompting you to create a login and password for the member-only section of the website, please email me at johnrush@orchidsanfrancisco.org. So I dropped that into the chat, into the Zoom chat. So if you have not received that email, we may have an outdated email on file for you, but please send me an email again to johnrush@orchidsanfrancisco.org if you have not received that onboarding email.
When did you send it?
I'd say like 3 or 4 days ago. Jeff, what do you think? Past week?
Past week.
Okay, I'm not in it then.
Okay.
I got mine just now. I mean, I opened it looking for my Zoom connection, and there was this letter, so it might have just come in now.
Well, deal with it offline with email. Let us know. Just wanted to let you know there were a fair number of questions about what it is. I just wanted to make a couple other comments about it. In the past, way back when, we used to have these little member, oh, it doesn't show up.
Handbooks.
Well, it was like a telephone directory, right?
Yeah.
And people wanted them back, but it's essentially online. We considered putting the roster online, but that creates issues around getting hacked and your information getting out. So if you want to get other people's contacts, we're gonna do what we're calling a concierge service, which means you ask and they send it to you if you remember. So we just don't want to put everyone's info out there. Some people have issues about it, and we don't want to get it stolen.
Yes, and I'll be sending a survey in the coming weeks to get a little more information out of everyone and hopefully be able to connect people with common interests in a secure way. Obviously opt-in only, but yeah, no, Jeff and I have been brainstorming some stuff, but we'd also love your input. So feel free to email me anytime, not just if you're having trouble logging in. But again, good to see everyone. I'm looking forward to hearing the speaker tonight, and reach out anytime if you need me.
All right, thanks, John. And then just an announcement that next month we have Tom Miranda speaking. He's putting together a brand new talk on somebody making a lot of noise. Can folks go on mute? Or am I gonna have to look?
You can just mute everybody.
Yeah. Hold on, let's see here. Okay, did that do it? Yeah. Okay, Judy, I muted you. You can unmute yourself later. Okay, there we go. Let's get going. Has someone unmuted themselves again?
That was me.
Muted again.
Yeah, can you go on mute, please? So if everyone goes on mute, it'll help the noise level. Okay, thank you. All right, back to the program. We will get there. We're picking up speed. So Tom's going to give a new talk next month on August 4th. It's going to be on African orchids. Looking forward to that. For those that didn't hear, Orchids in the Park was canceled this year, and POE 2021, we've decided to postpone, and it's not going to be in February. It might end up moving to July, but we're going to kind of wait and see. It gives us more time to make a decision. I also wanted to mention that John's been working on online sales options. So Mary's book is now up and for sale again on the website, and we're considering other things that we can sell via the website. And tell you more about that when we have a betterly formulated idea. The other thing I want to mention is right now I'm kind of, by necessity, kind of running a lot of things, but I could certainly use help from every one of you. First of all, we get a fair number of people that send photos for show and tell, which is great, but you can also post them yourself on our Facebook and Instagram pages too throughout the month. So it would be more interactive if folks are actually posting to the social media sites. So I want to encourage you to do that. It builds up our following as well. And then there's things for meeting prep, things that could help Christian put the newsletter together. And if people have any potential interest in future roles on the board or in chair positions, let us know. We could certainly let people get involved earlier before we're actually doing elections. They have a better idea of what's involved. So before I go into Ron, I think Mary Gerritsen had an OCA announcement.
Yes. Am I unmuted now?
You are.
Okay. So the Orchid Conservation Alliance, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is basically a grassroots organization of which a lot of members of the San Francisco Orchid Society participate or are members. We raise money by various means. Used to do a lot of trips to interesting places like Madagascar and New Guinea and Colombia. Obviously, that's on hold for the time being. But we're in the process right now of sort of revamping how we do things. And one of the things we'd like to do is to invite people who are interested in volunteering in some way with the Orchid Conservation Alliance, whether it's as a director, helping with trips. We have lots of different things that we need help with. So if you're interested in volunteering for a conservation organization that to date has raised over $500,000 to help foundations in mostly South America purchase land and create permanent reserves, then here's an opportunity for you. So all you need to do is contact me, and I'll put my email in the chat box so that if you're interested, you can contact me and we can talk more about how you might be able to participate, because we sure would love to have you help.
Mary's, Tanya, do you have job descriptions of what you need and how much time involved on those to help?
You know, the time commitment really, we don't have job descriptions that encompass that. I think the best thing to do is, you know, if you're interested in helping, is just contact me, tell me what you might be interested in, because right now we only have 4 jobs: the CEO, the CFO, and 2 directors. And the 2 jobs that take up the most time are the CFO and the CEO. The directors meet once a month and we have a meeting. But because there's only 4 of us, there's a lot of other stuff we end up doing. So we can create a customized job for you. So if you're interested, just contact me by email and I'll follow up. We can talk on the phone or something and you know, maybe.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, everyone. Any other questions? Okay, I'll go back.
I put everyone on mute, so just if you want to talk, check your mute button. You can unmute yourself.
It sounds to me like what you're asking for is something more specific than for those.
I lost her. Claire, you're on mute.
I didn't do it.
I unmuted me. Somebody muted me. Anyway, what I'm concerned about is that any and all of us should belong to the conservation organization and have our regular dues. I look forward to that at every POE to update that. What you're asking for is something over and above that, but we should all maintain our regular annual dues, right?
Yeah, well, we have things like, you know, just managing our membership list, helping with writing newsletters, putting stories on our social media page, to tell people about what we're doing. You know, there's lots of different things which can just be a small job or a big job, depending on, you know, how much you want to do. But right now, Peter and I are doing most of it, and we're just, you know, I took on a full-time job and I just don't have the time to put it into this that I'd like to. So if you're interested in helping, contact me and tell me the kinds of things you're interested in, and I'll see if we can find a way that you can help.
But that doesn't preclude any of us from joining and maintaining an annual membership as well.
That's
I'm trying
right.
to pump the membership for those that might not have the time but still want to join and contribute.
Yeah, so everyone is absolutely welcome to be a member, and you don't have to do anything to be a member other than pay dues. So if you go to the Orchid Conservation Alliance website, which I'll put in the chat box, there's a membership page there where you can join.
Okay, thanks. Ron, you're up. Did you want to give a plug for your sale?
Hello, everyone. Since we're in quarantine, I'm sure a lot of people have been doing lots of repotting. I certainly have been doing lots of repotting. And as a result, I've got quite a few divisions of cymbidiums that I want to sell. It's going to be some time before we have a society sale. So I put together a list that has photos and descriptions. And I put a listing in the newsletter, but also I wanted to make an announcement. I'll put my email address in the chat box. Just email me and I can send you the list of what's available.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. And yeah, just a plug that I know the Christian does a really nice job of trying to capture actually all the pictures from show and tell and all the content. We've made the newsletter where it's downloadable as a PDF. It should be easier for you to navigate and use. And then the announcements are in the back as well. So go all the way to the back and look at that. That's where the classifieds were.
And Jeff?
Yeah?
Also in the line of sales, Greg Corrales is having his final sale on the 11th at his greenhouse. If you haven't already been there, which I think almost everybody has, he's moving to San Diego and taking the rest of his cymbidiums with him.
Okie doke. Good. Thanks for...
Just a heads up.
Thanks for letting us know. All right. Let me see if I got this right. Okay. Let's get moving. Now it's my whole screen. That's not what I want to do. Sorry, guys. 1 second. I'm getting there. Every time I get out of the sharing, Okay. So, and we've already kind of covered this. This was my list of things for the website updates. So I mentioned the members only, some of what's there. And in the background, we're still doing memberships via Member Planet, but in the background, we're moving over to a Weebly Square platform, probably by the new year, but you can keep doing things the way you have. John's kind of taken that on. Mentioned Mary's book, and then I mentioned volunteers to help me. So we were looking to update content like growing resources on growing, any other links that you think should be there. I've been contacting people with history information on SFOS, and also things around conservation and education, as particularly around the grants. We're revamping some of that, so could use help with that. And we're working on ideas for fundraising online with member plant sales, similar to what Ron's doing, but we would need more people that would want to do some sort of sale and to consider how we could do that. All right, with no further ado, because it's already 7:30, I'm going to start moving through the show and tell. So I moved, Christian put this in the newsletter. Okay, somebody's unmuted again. Can you guys all mute again, please? Thank you. All right. So Christian put this, this lovely, as soon as I get it. No, it's just a Vera de Flava. So put it here in the show and tell. Jenny Lum contributed this frag Papal, and Larry this Ornithocephalus, and he had a question mark on the ID, Polyodon. So I don't know if anyone can help him with the ID for that. Anyone knows Ornithocephalus? All right. John William Murphy sent these pictures. Let me get this out of the way. So 3 different bulbophyllums, Sarcocephalum, Barbagerum, and Frostia. Yep. And these are going to end up in the newsletter and will be posted as well. Judy Carney sent this picture of 2 different Encyclia citrina color forms that she has in bloom. Larry White and Roy Wyman sent these pictures of their Paf Linnea Kupowitz and Phragmopedium lindii, and they pointed out that this is shown in both where it's just about to open and after it opened. Dave Hermeyer and Sam Wantman sent these pictures of some blooms they have right now. This Dendrobium Christianum, that's a dwarf form. Alalia purpurata flamea Jean Webster, and Alalia Giolani. By the way, I want to thank folks. A lot of people, I tried to say limit to 3, and most people did, and some people sent me more and said pick your favorite, but I still tried to put everything I could up, and we'll just try to keep the pace. John Russell McCallan sent these 3, so this, I couldn't even find this, so it must be a new, I'm wondering if it's a new cross. Phragmopedium august by Sorcerer's Apprentice, a Phragmopedium QF Maria, and Frag Emma Decker. Susan Anderson, a very, what's the adjective? Floriferous. Silogeny Massagiana, and when I looked it up, it looked like this was the other name that was often used, tomentosa. Herbaceae vericosa, Dendrobium, Paragnomus, and a Cattleya eclandia. These are from Kay Klum. So Kay sends us here Mysticidum capensis, and this is a close-up. Alalia cinnabarum, but cinnabarina, with a close-up of the flower and the whole plant, and her Epidendrum parkinsonianum. Tanya, also another Epidendrum parkinsonianum, Brassavola perenniae, again, tons and tons of flowers there. Also, I also have one of these Lindley Kupowitzes in bloom. I see she has hers here. We had just seen one from Larry and Roy. She has this Paphiopedilum John Fields. It's a Parisiae by Preston's, and a Cat lobata variety Cerulean Maria Christina. I'll keep going, and then we can back up if we have extra time if I'm going too fast, but I just want to make sure I get through them because we're run over. Okay, so Roberta Fox did a really nice job. Roberta, I want to thank you. She did all the insets for me. I usually do all the layout, so this saved me a lot of time. Very nice pictures and nice flowers. Sobralia sanderae, Dendrobium glomeratum, aka Sulawesiense, Stanhopea tigrina, Lycaste tricolor, Macroclinium dalstromii, and I can't even pronounce this. Lofgrenianthus blanche amici. I have never seen or heard of that before, but it's amazing.
Lefgrenianthus or Lefgrenianthus blanche amesii, and his little teeny thing, the little inset was because it was, when you look at it, it's kind of meh, but you look at the flower, it's pretty cool.
It's amazing. Yeah, that the cup of that little yellow lip with the edge of the magenta is pretty amazing.
Is that a thumb that's there behind it?
Yes, it's a little teensy weensy thing, but it's one of those where the name is bigger than the plant.
Beautiful. So, and you're growing in Costa Mesa, right? Is that
Right, and all of those are outdoor. The macroclinium I grow in the greenhouse, the rest are all outside.
beautiful? Okay. Stuart Menaker and Carrie Mitchell, they had sent these. So they're now they used to have a big outdoor space, and now they are in an apartment in San Francisco and growing a lot of things on a vertical wall. So he took these pictures of his Rananthera twin star, a close up, and a couple of other views for context. The Miltonia Phalaenopsis over here on the left, a Maxillaria uncata Linnaeus Rojas, and Kiditia taylori. I looked this one up. I didn't really know this one very well. It has it's a little hard to discern, but it's actually got these very interesting little side petals, structures that are interesting in 3D here. So is Stuart on? Are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want to say anything?
Well, so the Kiditia taylori, those blooms are about just over a quarter of an inch across. And the plant is amazingly floriferous. Right now it probably has 30 blooms. I've never seen it before, but right now it's got actually 2 blooms per pseudobulb, which is amazing. So the whole thing is about 2 inches tall, and the blooms are about a little more than a quarter inch across. The Maxillaria, the blooms are a little bit bigger than that, maybe 1 centimeter. And the Rananthera, actually, I bought that from Tom Perlides, and I gave it to a friend as a gift, but it was amazing, so I had to share photos.
Love it. And those are textured, right? The red bumps, they're kind of like raised bumps on the yellow background, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not that big. They're actually they're probably only about 2 inches tall.
Very nice. Okay. Jan and Fred Anderson. So you have a Gongora rufescens, McLarenera. Did I say that right? I forget exactly. It's McClellanera, I think. Yellow star, golden gamble. Looks like a brassia or brasso. A frag living fire, and this one I couldn't really confirm the ID. I think it said frag bloody. I saw a Bloody Mary, but it didn't look like this. So it's beautiful. I don't know, but I'm not sure about the ID on it. Jan, are you on? Let me see. I'll keep going here. We got plenty more to go. They sent more. So cat or Laelia xanthina by Schilleriana, a cat Gaskeliana, summer spot Carmella, Pointer cheetah with Susan Duke. She said was the third bloom, set of blooms. And LC King Petticoats.
Judy, we're getting a lot of background noise from you.
Judy again. Sorry, Judy. Thank you. All right, and then on the left here, Gia Lee. Hi, Gia. She sent this picture of a Dendrobium nobili in bloom. And then Deborah sent this, her Potenara cross with DLC Love Sound Dogashima, this yellow in the middle, as well as this mini cat purpurata. And Mary Garrison sent, all right, mute the dog, mute the dog.
That is not Dexter.
He's much better behaved. They just want to be heard. Dendrobium hancockii with a gazillion blooms on it. A Dendrobium crutwellii. Mary actually has, I put these into several different slides here. Try and get us out of the way. This Poroglossum edwardii, Trichosalpinx ovatifolia, Scaphocephalum ovulari. It's kind of unusual looking. Two color forms of a Dendrobium cuthbertsonii, a Masdevallia wubenii, and Masdevallia moricoi. And there's one more, I think. Yes, Mary also sent this with these Lepenthes Niceni and Regularis up here in the top right. A Fernandezia maculata here in the middle. Up in the upper left, a Ornithocephalus, or I guess it's now a Spryostylus Usilla.
Oh, it's the other way around. It used to be Spryostylus, and now it's Ornithocephalus.
Okay. I can tell from the leaves in the bigger picture. Oops. And this Restreepia chacoensis. Did you want to say anything, Mary, about any of them?
Well, actually, Fernandezia is probably, for me, the most interesting one because they're reputed to be absolutely impossible to grow because they grow at very high elevations and very cool. And this one, Yvonne had it from Equihenra this year, new at the POE, and convinced me to try it. And it's still alive after 6 months, and it's been blooming its little head off. So maybe that's one you can grow. It grows in a cool greenhouse here in San Mateo, but it's doing really well.
In the middle.
Yeah, that's one in the middle.
Beautiful. Thank you. We have a few more. So Paul and Edith Bourbon sent on the right here this Laelia purpurata Workhouseria.
Workhouseri.
Say it.
Workhouseri.
Workhouseri. Okay. And then Gloria Justin sent to this Masdevallia Ibanez Behar Speckles. And this one I think is mislabeled, so we could use some ID help. She had a label that said Epidendrum auricula, but when I looked online, what I found didn't look like that. So I don't know if anyone has a better help with ID, and Gloria said she'd welcome input. And
yeah, I actually got that little plant at the raffle a couple months ago, the so-called epidendrum. So maybe one of the members of
had it, right? Yeah, at first I thought it kind of looked like an encyclia or prostechia, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's tiny, so each flower is less than a centimeter.
What shape are the pseudobulbs?
Sort of
Are they round or are they flattened on one side?
Sort of. They're not very round. I mean, some of them, the older ones are round, but the
Okay.
yeah.
You can bring them up to the video screen. I got you on.
Let's see.
Okay.
It might be kind of hard to see, right?
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
The older one is rounder, but the newer ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
The plant.
Okay. Thanks, Gloria. All right. Well, we're 15 minutes ahead of schedule. We can keep going, but I just wanted to pause and because I kind of rushed through and mispronounced everybody's plants. So anything anyone wants to talk about that they think would be of particular interest to folks, or any questions about what was in show and tell?
Well, I have some show and tell plants.
Okay.
We showed a quick view and then it left it of something that looked like some native orchid of Florida they call the ghost orchid.
Ah, that's for the speakers. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So what you're talking about, that was the intro to the next what the speaker is going to talk about. So before we move on, so Bill wants to do some show and tell. Anyone else? Have anything else to say?
It's Karen Olson. I could do one plant if it shows up okay.
Okay. Do you, well, Bill, do you want to go ahead and go? I've got you up. So
you have disabled screen sharing.
Okay. But I have your video up. So I think, can everyone see Bill or no?
No, I have pictures.
Oh, on yours. Okay. Hold on. Let me figure out how to do this. I think I share.
You go to sharing and allow multiple people to share.
To host, right? Okay. Let's try that. Okay, try it. Can you want to try it now?
Here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Let's see. Can you see that one?
Can you blow it up or? Bobo Phalaenopsis plant. That one.
Yeah, didn't get any bigger on my screen. Well, you have to pin my video to make it full screen rather than just a little tiny thing.
Okay.
Bill, you have to pick.
That was interesting.
All right, we'll just keep going, Bill. I think you're going to need to enlarge them somehow. I don't know how.
Bill, you have to pick the picture after it opens as the thing you're sharing.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me go back. Come on, give me the page. Let's stop. Reselect. That better?
Yes.
Okay, that's Bulbophyllum phalaenopsis. It's a big flower, and it smells like something died. Can you see the plant?
Yes. Oh, it's up in there. Yep.
Yeah, so way up in here, at the very top, you can barely see the flower. And it looks like that. And then let's see, this is Dendrobium aggregatum. I finally learned when they say keep it dry for the winter, they are not kidding. It gets no water at all in the winter. This is a Lilia purpurata. It's the one that's actually behind me in my little thing here. It looks funny because the pot fell over sideways, it's hanging, and all the flowers bloomed out the side. This is, I forgot the name of it again. It's another purpurata hybrid. Canhamiana, Azure Skies. This is Phragmipedium golden.
Olaf Gruss.
What's that?
It says Olaf Gruss.
Oh, that's it, Olaf Gruss. But it's golden something is one of the parents. So for frags, it's a Bessii hybrid, but It's a Besseyi hybrid with a yellow flower. And then you've seen those before, so we're done.
Okay.
Yep, that was quick.
Thank you, Bill. Lovely as always. And Karen, you're up.
Yeah, this is an Oncidium Pharmacocalum, and I just love the color of the leaves. I don't know if you can see it very good, but there's an orange tinge to them also, along with green. And then the spike's about almost 2 foot, and I don't know if you can see very clearly the individual flower. But I've grown it for quite a long time, and I'm going to repot it when it's done blooming, but I've just really loved it. It's been very reliable for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
George McRae says he's got a Stanhopea.
Okay.
Mine just finished today, darn it.
Yeah, they don't last.
George, let me see. How do I do this? Where is George? Did you unmute yourself, George?
There we go. It's yeah, it's a Stanhopea hernandezii, and it's got eight flower spikes all the way around. And I was hoping that it would pop open for the meeting, but it seems to not want to. It'll do it tomorrow, of course, when I'm in the shower. But it's got like an enormous number of spikes on it. I think I got this from Terry Boomer. Brought it, put it on a plant table to sell one day, and he said it was from UC Botanical. They were clearing out their greenhouse or something like that, and it just said Stanhopea sp. So Ron Parsons ID'd it for me. So, but so I brought it in the house because I don't want to waste the fragrance. I have it growing on a branch of a tree in the backyard. But when I saw it was like this, I figured I may as well bring it in the house and overwhelm us with the fragrance when it opens up tomorrow, hopefully. So we'll see what happens.
We can always post pictures on our Facebook page so we can all see it when it opens.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I will absolutely do that.
Do you hear them crack open?
I have, yes. It makes kind of a pop.
Yeah.
And it just starts like kind of popping open like crazy. Yeah.
I hear them from inside I have some in the greenhouse, and when they open, I can hear them.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Yeah, it's like, come look at me now. Look at me now. Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thanks, George. Hey, George, are you still growing vanilla in your house?
Yeah, it's not doing very well. It had a pretty serious attack of scale, and I was reluctant to put poison on to spray it. I wasn't sure what to spray, so I was just using horticultural oil, and it needed more than that. But I didn't want to put anything that might become systemic because I've been, have harvested the beans over the years, and I, and have used them for cooking, and I didn't want to, end up with some residual pesticide. Anyway, so I have it cut way back, but it's coming along. I had to, get really selective about what was now under attack, but the scale is dreadful on it in my place. So
just the white fluffy scale.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah, yeah.
Did you try alcohol?
I did, but it was just almost along the whole plant. It was one of these things where it was doing enormously, and it was growing up the walls of the bathroom, and then it, by the time I realized it was in bad shape, it was in really bad shape. So.
Okay, well, thank you. It's one of the leafless orchids on the list in the talk, so it made me think about you when I said.
Well, maybe you can apply a systemic and just not do the pods this year.
I think that's not a bad idea. Just like forego it. Yeah, it didn't come into bloom this year anyway. It was because I had cut it back so much. But see if I can get it out here to show you what it was on.
With scale, it's kind of a challenge to get it with anything but a systemic.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
No, it's kind of enormous. The pot's kind of enormous. I'll take some pictures of it, Bill, and post them.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, George. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right, folks. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on and introduce Mary officially. So this is my cheat sheet. So I guess I should back up one here. So Mary is actually a thoracic surgeon who is in Shreveport, Louisiana. She's also affiliated with the Southwest Regional Orchid Growers Association and was a chair, I think, of their shows at some point. I don't, you can tell us more. She's served as president of the society, as well as I said, chairwoman for the Orchid Show. She grows thousands of greenhouse orchids, has a special interest in leafless orchids, which is what she's going to talk to us about. She also grows neophaneutias, Vanda fulcatas, amongst other things. And this is just a picture that I lifted, but I credited down here from a recent Carlton Ward Jr.'s piece in National Geographic. If you didn't see that, I think it's part of Mary's talk later, is about this the Sphinx moth pollination of these ghost orchids. It's been of interest to folks. So Mary, did I get anything wrong? Do you want to correct anything before I tee up your slides?
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can all hear me. I'm an AOS judge, been credited for 10 years, and for a while I was actually a national training coordinator. I'm the training coordinator for our center here in Shreveport. So I do a fair amount of the training for a lot of the student judges around the country, believe it or not.
Well, great. Okay, well, I have your slide deck up, so I'm going to switch from video back to on PowerPoint. And then
I'll have control.
You can just tell me and I'll advance it. If that,
okay. All right, that'll work.
Can you see the screen?
I can't hear her.
Not yet.
No? Oh, I was playing it. I guess I didn't set it up. I wondered why everybody was like sitting there. Sorry, guys. Let me try that again.
There we go.
Okay. Let me back up. So where are these? Are these your other babies? No.
No, this is just the background slide. You know, when we think of orchids, we actually think of orchids as a lot of leaves, a lot of flowers, and that's not all that's out there. I actually became interested in leafless orchids when I received my first plant from Santa Barbara Orchid Estate, believe it or not. I went out there, and I was actually out there for the Santa Barbara show, and I saw this thing in their greenhouse, and Wayne gave me a piece of it, which is the one on the right, believe it or not. And from then on, they've just fascinated me. And I'll give you the biology lesson behind this in some of the slides. I did some experimentation with it in the laboratory, actually trying to find out why these things actually survive, because by rights, they should die. They should not live for us. And they do. They're difficult. They take some rather peculiar conditions, and believe it or not, in Louisiana, we have the ideal conditions for these orchids. We're hot and we're wet, and that's what they like. In fact, where I have them, it's their own micro rainforest. So it's been a challenge, and now I'm, unfortunately, like most orchidists, I'm after the quest to gather as many of these species as I can. And I've turned into a repository for some. I've found some that are not identified. Ron McCatton has helped me identify a number of them where all of a sudden this twig will turn up with a flower on it. It's like, okay, where did you come from? So it's been a challenge, it's been fun, and it's also been a conservation effort. So let's go on to the next slide. Believe it or not, there's 8 genera of these, and there are at least 567 species, and some are being identified every day. We need to be careful, however, because a number of these are from Thailand, and so their identification is questionable. What I found is if I'm receiving a new one or one I haven't heard of, I'll go to the identification with the AOS and actually have somebody help me with it because they've been erroneously identified. These are some of the species that we have. Campylocentrum has 96 species, some of which have leaves, some of which don't. Hyloschista is the one that we are most familiar with. There's 30 species of Hyloschista, believe it or not, and there are now 5 hybrids. Most of them have been done by John Nelson down in Baton Rouge. Dendrophylax, we know this is the classic ghost orchid from Florida, but really there's 13 species of Dendrophylax, and the easiest one to grow is Dendrophylax funalis, which is out of the Cayman Islands. I went dark.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. Okay, back to, where is the talk? Sorry. There we go.
No, wrong slide. There we go. There you had it.
No, back, go back.
There you go, that's it.
Sorry.
Microcelia has 40 species. We're familiar with the most familiar one is Stoltzii. There's several others out there. I've just identified a cornuta, which is a very interesting jumbled mess is what I call it in the greenhouse. It's this thing that's on a coat hanger and it just has gone everywhere. Tinophyllum has 200 species. The Solangus, 17 species, and those are hard to come by. And then vanilla, believe it or not, vanilla orchids are, there's a number that are actually leafless, and I'll show them to you. I have 2 that I'm growing very well. Some I've tried and they're very, very difficult to grow. Next slide. So we know roots, we deal with roots every day. You deal with roots in your Vandas, you deal with roots in your Cattleyas, you deal with roots in your Phalaenopsis, but you have to, the difference is these all have leaves. And so the roots actually have their own biology, which is to provide sustenance to the plant, and the leaves are there to provide the photosynthetic mechanism to provide the sugar for the plant. Well, the leafless orchid doesn't have that luxury. These roots have to carry the entire burden of the sustenance of the plant. And my big question is, how did they do that? Because they don't have leaves. So there has to be a photosynthetic mechanism within the root system of these leafless orchids. Next slide. And if we look at the biology and just remember a little bit of high school biology, the leaf has a section on it and you have an entity in it called the chloroplast, which contains the chlorophyll that takes the sunlight and converts the sunlight with the fertilizer that you're giving it and water to make sugar. And that's how the plant lives. Well, the question arises is, does this entity exist in the leafless orchid root? Next slide. And if we look at a micrograph of a Vanda root, which I took because the Vanda root has to be closest to the leafless orchid, what you'll see in a leaf, you'll have a pore And the pore is where the water comes out. And then you have these structures that have the chlorophyll in them. If you look at the Vanda root down below, the Vanda root does have pores, and then it has these smaller structures that are labeled that actually have chlorophyll in them. But the Vanda root is not well developed as a photosynthetic entity. Next slide. Now, what I did is I took the leafless orchid and I brought it back to the laboratory and had it sectioned. And what I did find in them is that there were actual unidentified structures, if you will. These haven't been clearly identified in any literature that may well contain chlorophyll. I couldn't get far enough along with it to do the staining. But there are also pores in those roots. And so that tells me these roots actually have both leaf structure and root structure. So that's the only reason that they'll live. But they have to live under very specific conditions. And those conditions, I'll go through how to culture these, is that they need sunlight, they need water, but you can't dry them out. And that's tricky. Next slide. And you can keep going. We went through that. So I'm just going to go through the leafless orchids, and most of them you will see live in the islands, Central America, South America, but now we're finding a fair number of them in Thailand. Probably because Thailand really wasn't open for exploration. It's almost becoming a secondary economic boom for that area. So we're finding more things out of Thailand. The Campylus centrum was the one that actually was first discovered. It was found in Florida, so it's native to the United States and North America. It's found all the way down into South America. Actually not seen very often, and if you go to the AOS website and look on their award section, you won't see very much awarded. You'll just see maybe an identification award, but that's about it. Next. And the identification award is the CBR or the CHM, which means we're going to recognize it, but we're not going to do much with it, because if you're an AOS judge and the student that if you're here will understand, the mentality is if it's not round, if it's not full, and if it's not flat, I'm not going to award it. Okay. But this is Constantian, and again, roots, diminutive flowers. Okay, it takes a lot of energy for the plant to make flowers, and so in the wild, it's difficult for them to flower effectively. Next slide. This is fasciola, which was what we see mostly if you're going to cultivate. This is actually quite easy to cultivate. It's easy to acquire. Found in Belize. You just grow this like you'd grow a dendrophylax, but again, diminutive flowers, lots of roots, nondescript, if you will, if you really didn't understand what you were looking at. Next slide. This is Grisenbachii. Again, they all look alike, but you have to identify the flowers very carefully, and up close pictures will show you the differences. Next slide. This is Campylocentrum pachyrizium. I'm after this one. I do not have one. I've been trying to find one. Very difficult to find just because of the flower arrangement. I think this would be very spectacular if we could grow it effectively. Next slide. Now the Chylocista, which is what we're all familiar with, there are about 30 known species. They're distributed through India and Thailand and even some in Australia. One has recently been discovered in China. Most commonly seen are the Lunifera, Parisiae, and Viridiflava. There's 5 known hybrids, and these hybrids do not grow well, believe it or not. Mostly what we think is that a hybrid will end up as a stronger, more vibrant plant, but these aren't. These are very difficult to thrive. Next slide. This is Lunifera, generally brown, very easy to come by, not hard to grow, seen very often in cultivation. Now, to get a plant to look like this takes about 10 years. Next slide. This is Parisiae, and you'll see Parisiae and Viridiflava are very similar. Same coloration. So you need to be a little careful on identification. And if I have a plant coming in, I'll have a secondary ID made of it because they're often confused. Very beautiful plant, very lots of flowers, let's put it that way. Beautiful yellow with the white picotee around the edge. Next slide. This is, I'm not even gonna try. Anyway, this is actually not the correct name. Nacropanomensis is not the accepted Q name for this one. It's really Extentoriformis. Just went through this because I had one judged. So be careful. Again, this is out of Thailand, and it's a very pretty flower, much darker orange than this, small, but again, not many in circulation. Next slide. Ramifera, the dark brown, and the reason these are important is because if you have the nondescript yellow and then you get a nice dark brown, people are going to try and hybridize it, and that's how we got pumpkin face and freckle face and some of these others. Next slide. Schwamilii, again for its spotting, again sought after to hybridize. You know, if you get a nice yellow with some nice spots, the folks that are trying to hybridize will try and obtain this. This tends to be a very small plant, however, and a little bit on the difficult side to grow. Next slide. Eusnonoides, again, the solid green. What distinguishes this from the others is the petals and sepals are solid. So you don't have the white picotee around the edges. There's no spotting. Next slide. Viridiflava, and is this one of mine? This is one of mine. Again, these plants are very easy to become specimen plants. You can ignore them, and they'll grow for you. Next slide. Wow. And the flowers are characteristically yellow with the white picotee, but again, you can see the similarities among them all. Next slide. This is just some of the award pictures. I just had a CCM awarded on one of mine last week. Next slide. And this is out of Bob Fuchs's collection. Next slide. Yunanensis is the one out of China. Not clear on where exactly it's grown. There is some, I mean, you'd think they'd say, yes, Yunnan province, which is relatively cold. By the time they get to the States, these plants are in very pathetic condition, and so it's hard to grow them. I've had several, and now I have about 3 that are thriving. I have yet to bloom one. Very interesting coloration. neat looking plant and neat looking flower. Next slide. Now these are some of the hybrids. This is freckle face, which is Swimilii crossed with Sagawai. And again, you get the green background with the spots. Next slide. And this is pumpkin face, which is Sagawai and Ramifera. So if you remember, the Sagawai was the yellow and the Ramifera was the dark brown, and you get the two together, and here you have brown and yellow. Next slide. And this is Suinang, which is Lunifera crossed with Viridiflava. Now you would think, since Lunifera is a great grower and Viridiflava is a great grower, that this would be a great grower. Wrong. This is very hard to survive. Next slide. Now everybody is on the hunt for the ghost orchid in South Florida. There's 13 species of the Dendrophylax. They're only found in the Caribbean. The Linnaeus is indigenous to Florida, which has been classified as endangered. However, it is coming back. There's a significant effort to reproduce this in cultivation. There's several hybrids. There's two known. One's Grips Ghost, and the other one is Grips Ghost crossed back onto Funalis. Both of these were actually, I believe, Santa Barbara Orchid Estate is the one who's housing them right now. I have a couple of specimens in my greenhouse. We're trying to propagate them and then release them. Next slide. So this is the classic Linnaeus. It grows in the Florida Everglades. If you see them, they're on cherry wood trees, and underneath it's all water. So it's a very, very high humidity area. They get rained on every day. The reason they are semi-extinct is because their pollinator, which is this particular moth, is also endangered. And so you need this moth in order for this flower to propagate. Next slide. And this is just a structure of the flower. Very distinctive. None of the other Dendrophylax look like this. They're missing the legs. They're much more diminutive. It's very pretty once they flower for you. Next slide. And this was one that was awarded in 2014. Next slide. Basically, if you can get one to bloom, you're going to get an award on it. Next slide. This is Dendrophylax barretiae. I have yet to see one. Not readily available. Next slide. This is Funalis. This is my specimen plant in my greenhouse. Hard to find nowadays. I don't know what happened to it. It was readily available about 10 years ago and now basically gone dark. Next slide. And this is how they will bloom. I grow mine in a basket. Some people grow them in wood slats. This one was grown in a pot. Next slide. Dendrophylax saliae. This is a relative of the Linnaeus. And now there's an effort to cross this with Linnaeus. There's several folks that have done this. There's several flasks out there. I have about 4 of these plants growing, but I have yet to bloom them. Next slide. Here's Funalis. And here's Linnaeus, and this is Grips Ghost. So when you cross the two, what happens is you lose the wings. and the Funalis takes over because it just has some stronger genetics. Next slide. The microcelias are an African species. They can be found in Madagascar, Uganda, Zimbabwe. They're hot to cool growing, but they tend to like hot. There are no known hybrids at this point. Next slide. Aphylla, again, very diminutive flowers, readily available, not too hard to grow, but if you notice the root structure is very thin. Next slide. This is another one, Bobo Charata. Lovely green flowers. I wish I could get my hands on one. I haven't even seen where they're available. Next slide. This is Microcelia cornuta. This is the one that I discovered in my greenhouse. I had this mass of this stuff and I'm like, I don't know what this is, and there was no label on it. And then it finally bloomed and I was able to get it identified. But you can't see it very well on this, but the spur looks like a horn, as most spurs do, and that's what identifies it. The other identifying structure is the lip is brown. Next slide. Microcelia guyanea, the blue, okay. It is really blue, so it's one of the blue orchids. Next slide. Stoltzii, which we're all familiar with. This is pretty prevalent, and will make just these masses of small white blooms coming out of the leaf structure. Next slide. The next species is the Microtetorchis. There's approximately 53 species. Indonesia and the Philippines is where you generally find them. They're found in broadleaf forests. They're generally singular plants. Next slide. And they're creepers, so they creep along. You might fudge a little bit and say they do have vestigial leaves on them. Lovely green. Next slide. May even be called a Tanophyllum nowadays. The Tanophyllum itself has 200 species native to Australia and New Zealand. It's generally found from sea level to 1,000 meters. There's no known hybrids. Next slide. Calceolum has the small yellow flower. So you'll have a mass of roots and then these little tiny flowers come out through the center. Next slide. Crepidiforme. Again, diminutive. Next slide. And obtusum, which is the one that is most common in cultivation. I finally have been able to get a few of these plants to survive. They're not easy. Next slide. Solanangis is found in southern Africa. This is thought to be related to the Angrecum. There's 17 no species. Next slide. Aphylla is the most common. And what you'll see is this flower spike come out and then these itty bitty white flowers come out with it. Next slide. The vanilla orchid. We don't think of the vanilla orchid as being leafless, but there are actually 3 leafless species. There's the Aphylla, the barbellata, and the Dilloniana. And there are 5 known hybrids of vanilla, but none of these are leafless. There's been several awards to the leafless forms. Next slide. This is the Aphila. And it's basically just a big stem. And that's what this is. It's a big stem, and the stem just wraps around. Next slide. This is a Dilloniana, and what's beautiful about this is if you can get it to bloom, and I say a big if, the flower is very characteristic with the purple lip. Next slide. And then this is the Barbellata. Again, mostly the root structure, and then it'll bloom into the yellowish flower. They do make vanilla beans. The vanilla beans are edible or can be used to make vanilla. Next slide. And there is a leafless Phalaenopsis, believe it or not, Wilsonii, semi-leafless. What'll happen is you'll have the root structure, it'll bloom, and then in its what I call dormant state, it'll make a small vestigial leaf at the node, and then the leaf will drop, and then it'll bloom again. Next slide. You can go on, don't need to worry about this. Cultivation, I thought I had the cultivation slide in here, but I didn't. What I've learned through killing my fair share of these is that they require heat, unlike what is written in the literature with them, is that they basically say, well, they grow in shaded areas under canopies, but they do require light. And so through experimentation, I actually have them in a green greenhouse. So the greenhouse is of green plastic, and the green plastic seems to filter out the more of the infrared rays for them, and they thrive under those conditions, but it is relatively sunny. They also require water, but they will not grow in wet. You cannot keep them constantly wet. You cannot keep them in a medium or on moss that is always soaked. They need to be wet and then dry out and then watered again. So in our conditions here, you know, I'll get up into the hundreds. If it's really a hot summer, I have to water them 2 or 3 times a day. Let them dry out and then water them again. As far as fertilizing goes, basically any kind of fertilizer. I tend to use fish meal. There's a liquid solution that I'll put in a sprayer and just spray them down whenever I water them. But you can use Michigan formula or whatever your favorite one is. They require the same amount of fertilizer that any other orchid requires.
Someone asked about how long the flowers typically last.
I can't hear you.
Am I? No, I'm not on mute.
Okay.
Someone was asking about how long the flowers last typically.
They can last up to a month. Depends on how hot it is.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Other questions? You guys are on mute, so you can unmute yourself or raise your hand or chat me, and I'll help you if you need help. Let's see. Mary says, Mary, are you able to unmute yourself or no? Mary Gerritsen, let's see. Where is it? I wonder if I have it set.
Let's see, there's a question here on how do you keep them constantly moist. You have to understand my humidity here is almost 90%. So I don't have much trouble here. You can do it with a mister, but again, they need to dry out at some point during the day. There's another question, what's a good plant to start with? I would probably start with the Chyloschista viridiflava. That seems to be the easiest one to grow. You could try the Microcelia stoltzii, but those require more water.